WWE wrestlers who gave the most subtle, heartwarming tributes to deceased wrestlers. Number 1. Dominik Mysterio visits Eddie Guerrero's gravesite. Now, there's a reason that Dominik calls Ray a deadbeat dad and believes that his real father is actually Eddie Guerrero, the man who should have won custody over him at 2005 SummerSlam. Or whether it was ECW, WCW, or WWE, Guerrero was a charismatic performer that delighted and entertained fans around the country. However, Guerrero's bond to Dominik was quite different. Ray and Eddie were best friends, so the IC champion got to know the man outside of the ring. So when the former WWE champion died on November 13, 2005, his death had a greater impact on him because of how close he and Eddie were. Dominik has stated that Eddie was a huge influence in his life and has honored the WWE Hall of Famer on numerous occasions. His mullet is an obvious tribute, or his tribute to Eddie at WrestleMania 38, but Dominik Mysterio taking his Intercontinental Championship to Eddie's gravesite was probably the biggest. This was a huge moment for Dominik Mysterio since that was his biggest win in WWE to date. Dominik had once been a bland babyface upon his debut, and even though he debuted alongside his father, he did a full 180 and turned into one of the most popular heel characters on the WWE roster. Eddie would surely be proud of what Dominik has accomplished during his short time in the WWE, and it's clear that bringing his IC title to Eddie's gravesite had more value than winning it at WrestleMania 41. Number 2. CM Punk tributes Sabu. Sabu was one of the icons who defined hardcore wrestling during the 90s and early 2000s. Sabu gained his notoriety in ECW and became one of the faces that defined what the company was known for. Although ECW was rather short-lived, it still left a huge impression in professional wrestling and was definitely one of the catalysts for the birth of the Attitude Era. One of those people that Sabu left an unforgettable impression on was CM Punk. The former WWE champion was a huge fan of the ECW original. In fact, one of his favorite wrestlers from ECW is Terry Funk. Punk actually got the honor of facing Sabu not once, but twice. The first time was at an IWA Mid-South wrestling show in a triple threat match in the early 2000s. However, before CM Punk became one of the most popular stars on the WWE roster, he took on Tracy Smothers and the one and only Sabu. The second match was in TNA, where the WWE star wrestled briefly in 2003 and 2004, as Punk was in a group called The Gathering with Julio De Niro, and he took on Raven and Sabu. Beyond that and a couple of segments, CM Punk didn't share much screen time with the legend, but the former WWE champion showed his full appreciation and love for the former ECW star when Sabu unexpectedly passed away on May 11, 2025. The following night on Raw, Punk honored Sabu by doing his signature pose of pointing his finger to the sky, and then he penned a simple but strong message about Sabu later on in the night. He influenced everyone and everything. You read about him, and when you finally saw him, he somehow exceeded the expectations. He was infamous. There will never be another Sabu. Sabu had dozens of tributes pouring in from wrestlers from all generations, and it shows just how influential the former ECW World Champion was both in and outside the ring. Number 3. Becky Lynch tributes The Fiend. But Bray Wyatt passing away completely rocked the world of professional wrestling. Despite the former WWE champion being off television for nearly 4 months, there were no reports that he was suffering with any illnesses. Bray was in WWE for nearly 10 years, and he took the world by storm when he came onto the main roster as the leader of the Wyatt family. Bray was a good wrestler and an exceptional talker, but his creative mind was on a whole different level. Bray made a huge impact in the current landscape, so it was no surprise that he was flooded with the tributes and touching messages throughout the wrestling world. But it wasn't just his persona that touched people's hearts. Bray was reportedly a genuinely nice person behind the scenes, and Becky Lynch has talked about Bray's kindness on multiple occasions. She spoke highly of the future Hall of Famer in 2024. Oh man, Bray was always one of those people that you look forward to seeing because he had this warmth about him and this kindness and this mischief in his eyes. Like he had the most sparkly eyes you've ever seen, and that raspy voice and his signature laugh and his hugs. Like he gave you the world's best talk. There was just nothing but love. You could just sit down and talk to him for hours about anything. I remember the first time meeting him, and he was this huge star, and I was just an extra. He just talked to me like an equal. There's not a lot of people that did that, especially back then. There was just this goodness in him. He was good and he was kind. I was told his story about how I didn't have a clue how to set up a table, and he spent a long time showing me. Then it was funny because I had a last woman standing match with Nia, and I couldn't set up the damn table, and I was like, oh, if only Wyndham was here, Now, following his passing, Becky Lynch would pay tribute to Bray after a Falls Count Anywhere match on August 28, 2023, but the man has continued to honor Bray throughout the years, with a recent tribute coming the night after Clash in Paris, where she gave CM Punk the beats before AJ Lee's unforgettable return. The slam down overshadowed the subtle tribute, but it was cool that Lynch got to sneak in a fun element that brought so much joy to the WWE Universe. Number 4. Alexa Bliss, friend forever. Now perhaps the person who was the closest to Bray outside of his family and friends was Alexa Bliss. Their partnership started in late 2020, but it seemed like the pairing was akin to Harley Quinn and the Joker, but putting their own spin on things. Nevertheless, Bliss and Bray had an on and off relationship on screen. Even when WWE released Bray in 2021, they tried to push his gimmick onto the former WWE Women's Champion, but sadly that failed on all fronts. WWE teased reuniting Bliss and Wyatt in 2023, but they will never fully reunite despite the heavy teases before his passing. Now Bliss wasn't on screen when Bray passed away in August that year, but she didn't forget about the man that shaped the last few years of her career. Bliss finally made a return at the 2025 Royal Rumble. Jason Baker, who's a special effects artist, assisted in Alexa's tribute by crafting a very special jacket that surely made the Fiend smile. The letters behind the jacket were "Friends Forever," paying special attention to the word Fiend. Now it's a damn shame that we never got a chance to have a good run with the Fiend and Alexa Bliss. It could have been easily the best on-screen couple pairing in wrestling if it was done correctly. Number 5. The Fiend, Jeff Hardy. Bray Wyatt didn't just impact WWE, he affected the entire wrestling community. And Jeff Hardy does have some history with Bray, but not so much. The former WWE champion worked extensively with his brother Matt, with the two being known as the Deleter of the Worlds back in 2017. In fact, Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy had the first and only Ultimate Deletion match on Raw. The Matt and Bray pairing was actually quite fun, though WWE didn't particularly do much with them in their short tag team stint. But Jeff wanted to pay tribute in his own way to the WWE star. Jeff used his special face paint design on September 19th, 2024's episode of TNA Wrestling to mimic the face of the Fiend. This was a heartwarming tribute, and now we can only dream of ever having a Brother Nero and Fiend interaction. Number 6. Iyo Sky wears a black armband for Hana. Before Iyo Sky entertained the masses in NXT and WWE, Sky wrestled in the all-women's Japanese promotion World Wonder Ring Stardom. She built her name through Stardom for nearly a decade and had fought plenty of female talents from across the globe. One of those talents was Hana. Kimura was a relative newcomer who arrived on the professional wrestling scene in 2016. Now she did have several matches against Iyo, but she was mainly known for being part of two groups, the Iyo Tai and the Tokyo Cyber Squad. Hana's career was building nicely, but unfortunately for the talented wrestler, she was the subject of cyberbullying that would mark the end of her life. On May 23, 2020, Hana posted some self-harm images on Twitter and Instagram, along with some hateful comments that she received. Sadly, later in the day, she took her own life and was found in her Tokyo apartment. She left a haunting message before her death, saying goodbye on her Instagram stories. As soon as the news hit the internet, tributes poured out for the 22-year-old as Hana was a well-liked figure in the business. Though she had no ties to WWE, Iyo Sky was very familiar with Hana, and as a touching tribute, she wore a black armband on NXT with Hana's signature logo. Sky would even write a touching message highlighting how much of an innocent soul Hana really was. Hana was one of the most talented female wrestlers in the world, and I was looking forward to watching her grow to see how far she could go. I will always remember a smile that would brighten up a room she walked into. It is so important that we all love and treat each other with respect. Number 7. WWE stars get Bray Wyatt's tattoo. Now, after Bray Wyatt's passing, several WWE superstars and colleagues honored him by getting matching tattoos. The design chosen was Wyatt's logo. Among those who got the tattoos were Braun Strowman, Karrion Kross, Shotzi, and Rob Fee, a WWE writer who worked very closely with Bray Wyatt. Corey Graves also received a tattoo in memory of Wyatt, and in the piece it features the Fiend holding the iconic lantern from Wyatt's mythology. The tattoos have all served as a permanent personal tribute to their friend and co-worker. Number 8. CM Punk's tribute to Mitsuharu Misawa. Mitsuharu Misawa is a Japanese legend who competed in All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah. Misawa had competed for over 3 decades before his unfortunate passing on June 13, 2009. Misawa was doing what he loved the most, wrestling. He was taking the GHC Tag Team Champions Sato and Smith in a title match with Shizaki by his side. The match was going according to plan until Misawa took a back suplex from Sato. Suddenly, Misawa stopped moving and everyone went into a panic. The referee stopped the match and the doctor in attendance attempted to perform CPR, but he was unable to revive him. He was eventually taken to hospital, but he was pronounced dead at the age of 46. His death was ultimately caused by a heart attack. CM Punk, who was a massive fan of the Japanese legend, wrote Misawa's last name on his wrist tape on an episode of Monday Night Raw when he defended the World Heavyweight title for the first time. Punk also got a tattoo of Misawa's signature green wrestling boot. Number 9. The Undertaker wears Yokozuna's t-shirt after his death. Yokozuna is an absolute legend in the business. By the age of 34, Yokozuna was a former WWE champion, a Royal Rumble winner, and a tag team champion. But sadly, Yokozuna had an increasing problem with his weight. With each passing year, the Hall of Famer kept gaining weight instead of losing it. Reportedly, Vince McMahon didn't want to take any chances when it came to any liability, so he released Yokozuna in 1998. The former WWE champion then went on to the indie circuit, but sadly Yokozuna passed away on October 23, 2000, at only the age of 34. The cause of death was pulmonary edema, a fluid around the body that became blocked. It led the fluid building up in his lungs, and his weight was a major contributing factor. As expected, plenty of stars mourned the death of Yokozuna. The Undertaker, who was one of Yokozuna's closest friends, did it in a subtle manner by wearing a WWE Classic shirt of the former WWE champion the day after he passed away. The Undertaker's character had never been the sentimental type, so the fact that he was able to honor his close friend without even breaking character was cool to see. And number 10, the New Day's Brodie Lee tribute gear. Now, nobody saw the death of Brodie Lee coming. The former TNT champion had an incredible dog collar match against Cody Rhodes, then he simply vanished from television. Unfortunately, the Dark Order leader was suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and Lee passed away on December 26, 2020. But the man whose WWE and AEW career consisted of him being in dark and creepy characters was actually a lovable human being behind the scenes. Lee immediately got an outpour of love from everyone in the wrestling community. There wasn't a dry eye during that special tribute broadcast to Brodie Lee on AEW. But Kofi Kingston, Big E, and Xavier Woods would take the tribute in their own way. On screen, the New Day and the Wyatts were mortal enemies, but the New Day had no problem showing their respect to a man who gave so much to the wrestling business. What the New Day had was a special memorial on the back of their custom attires. It was a cool art design that played into the New Day's unique style while still capturing the impact Brodie made in the professional wrestling world. But there you have it, folks, 10 wrestlers who gave the most subtle, heartwarming tributes to deceased wrestlers. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.